Many years ago in Accra, there lived a very strong woman named Sophia who was nicknamed Miss Independence. This woman did not just like independence. She worshipped it, respected it deeply, and defended it like a family property that must not be shared. However, Sophia was not born like that. Life trained her. She grew up in a house where if you waited for help, you would grow old waiting. In that house, promises were like Hamatan clouds. There were plenty in the sky but sent no rain on the ground. So she learned early that if something must be done, it is better you stand up and do it before explanation comes and delays everything. By the time she became an adult, Sophia had already concluded something strong inside her mind. Depend on yourself because people will disappoint you. That belief balanced inside her, and from then on, it started controlling her life. Sophia was very hardworking. Immediately she wakes up, her mind would start working. She had a good, respectable job, but that was not enough for her. She still ran side hustles. She planned and calculated everything like an accountant of her own destiny. Then she married Samuel. Now, Samuel was a gentleman. If you met Samuel for the first time, you might think he did not have an opinion, but that would be a mistake. Samuel had sense. He did not just package it with noise. At the beginning of their marriage, everything looked normal, peaceful, organized, and simple until Samuel started noticing something small. He realized that Sophia did not like help at all. The first time it happened, he thought it was ordinary. He saw her carrying 2 heavy bags from the market. Not small bags, oh, big bags that make the shoulders start complaining immediately. He rushed forward and said, "Sophia, let me help you." Sophia looked at him, then looked at the bag, then looked back at him and replied, "I am okay." Samuel paused and then said again, "Let me carry at least 1. Sophia adjusted the bag slightly and said, "I said I am okay." Then she walked past him, struggling slightly but still determined. Samuel stood there watching in confusion because to him, help was normal, but to Sophia, help looked like an insult. Another day, he entered the kitchen and saw her fixing something under the sink. Water had been leaking from there. Samuel bent down and said, "Move, let me check it." Sophia shook her head and said, "I have handled it." Samuel looked at the pipe, looked at her, and then looked back at the pipe because what she had handled was not exactly working. He asked, "Are you sure?" Sophia quickly tightened something. Water splashed slightly, but still, she wiped it and said, "It is under control." Well, that pipe was not under control, but pride had already taken responsibility. This continued, and in a matter of weeks, Samuel noticed the pattern. He would offer help, and Sophia would reject it. If he said, "Let me drive," she would reply, "I can drive myself." If he said, "Let me pay," she would say, "I have my money." If he said, "Let me fix it," she would say, "I have done it." One evening, Samuel sat down and asked her directly, "Sophia, why do you always refuse help?" Sophia did not answer immediately. She wiped her hands, sat down, looked at him, and then said something simple. "If I start depending on you, what happens if you are not there?" Samuel blinked and defended, "But I am here." Sophia nodded, yes, and then added, "But life happens." Samuel leaned back helplessly. Still, he tried again another day. Sophia was climbing a chair, trying to adjust a cotton rod that clearly did not want to cooperate. Samuel entered and froze. "Sophia, calm down." She looked at him and said, "I am almost done." "You will fall," Samuel insisted. "I will not fall," she maintained. "You are shaking." "I am not shaking," she said. At that moment, the chair moved slightly. Samuel's heart jumped. "Sophia!" But she held the wall and balanced herself, then said confidently, "You see, nothing happened." Samuel looked at her again helplessly. Outside, neighbors had already started talking because, as always, observation is free. One woman said, "That Sophia lady, she behaves as if she's the only person in the world." Another person replied, "She does not like help at all." A third one added, "Don't worry, life will teach her small." Meanwhile, inside the house, Samuel had started to reduce his efforts because you cannot force help on someone who sees it as disrespect. But while he adjusted, Sophia continued. She woke up early every day, worked hard, handled everything, rejected assistance, and moved like a one-woman government. If something needed fixing, she fixed it. If something needed arranging, she arranged it. If something needed carrying, she carried it alone. Even when she was tired, she would still say, "I am fine." And that was the problem, because really, in Sophia's life, "I am fine" did not mean fine. It meant "I will manage." One evening, her friend visited. They sat outside talking. Then her friend asked, "Sophia, do you ever rest?" Sophia laughed. "Rest for what?" Her friend frowned. "You are always doing something." Sophia shrugged. "If I don't do it, who will do it?" Her friend pointed inside. "Your husband is there." Sophia smiled. "He will try, but I will still do it better." Samuel, who was inside, heard that sentence, but he did not respond. He simply nodded to himself. The next morning, Sophia woke up early as usual before the sun and began moving around the house like someone who had already planned 10 things before opening her eyes. She entered the kitchen, checked the gas, checked the pots, checked everything like an inspector general of her own life. Then she began cooking fast and focused. At some point, Samuel entered and watched her by the door. Then he said, "Sophia, let me help you cut the vegetables." Sophia did not even turn. She just said, "I have done it." Samuel looked at the table and frowned because nothing was cut. He looked at her again and nodded. "Okay." Then he left. 5 minutes later, Sophia was still cutting aggressively, as if she was proving a point to the vegetables that did not even care. By the time she finished, she was slightly tired, but she would never say that. Never. In her system, tired is not something you admit, you manage it. Later that morning, she began preparing for work. She got dressed and picked up her bag. A very heavy bag filled with laptop, files, and extra things that she may not need, but carried just in case life decides to test her. Samuel stood up again. "Sophia, let me carry this to the car for you." Sophia looked at him, then at the bag, then back at him and smiled. "I can carry my bag." Samuel nodded. "Okay," then sat down. Sophia balanced the bag on her shoulder, even though it was very uncomfortable. Halfway to the car, she paused, adjusted her shoulder, then continued quickly because stopping would look like weakness, and Sophia did not entertain weakness. That afternoon, she returned from work tired, really tired, but as usual, she did not enter the house to rest. She entered to continue. She dropped her bag, changed her clothes, then immediately moved to the kitchen because food must be cooked, the house must function, and life must continue. Samuel sat again watching. After some time, he said, "Sophia, sit down first." "I am fine," she replied. "But you just came back." "I will rest later," she said. But that later never came. While cooking, her phone rang. It was a work call. She picked it, held the phone between her ear and shoulder, and continued stirring the pot while responding, explaining and arguing. She kept on multitasking like someone who believed she had more than one body. Samuel stood up slowly and walked closer to watch her. Then he shook his head slightly because he knew this was no longer strength. This was stress wearing confidence. That night, as they sat to eat, Samuel said, You don't have to do everything, you know. Sophia looked at him and replied, yes, I do. Why? Samuel asked. She paused and then said something simple, because if I leave it, it will not be done properly. Samuel frowned because from that sentence, he now understood that the problem was not really ability. It was trust. Sophia did not trust that anything would go well without her involvement. So she carried everything like a responsibility that had no assistance. From that day, Samuel didn't just adjust. He stopped arguing. He did not withdraw in anger. He simply stepped back and allowed space because he knew that some lessons cannot be explained with words. They must be experienced with life. And alas, life did not delay. That same week, everything decided to happen at once. On Monday morning, Sophia woke up before the sun had properly risen. Her alarm had not even rung yet, but her mind was already active, listing tasks, arranging problems and preparing for the day like a soldier going to battle. She rushed through her morning routine and opened her laptop immediately because a work deadline was waiting for her, like a landlord who does not accept excuses. Emails were entering, calls were coming in, and her boss was asking questions that sounded urgent even when they were not. Sophia handled everything quickly, moving from one task to another without resting, speaking on the phone while typing, and reading documents while thinking ahead, because in her mind, slowing down was dangerous. At the same time, the generator refused to start that evening. Sophia stepped outside immediately, bent down beside the generator, and began checking it like someone who believed confidence could replace technical knowledge. She pressed the switch again and checked the fuel, but the machine did not answer her. She hit the side lightly as if the machine would respond to discipline. Samuel stood by the door and watched her for a moment before speaking calmly. Sophia, leave it. Let the technician come and handle it. Sophia did not even look at him. She muttered, I can fix it. Samuel nodded and went back inside because he had already decided not to argue with her. After almost 30 minutes of struggle, sweat had started forming on Sophia's forehead. Still, the generator did not cooperate. It remained silent, stubborn and uninterested in her determination. Finally, she stood up, wiped her hands, picked her phone and called the technician. When the man arrived, he bent down, adjusted one small part, and the generator came on immediately. Sophia stood there quietly. She did not say anything. She only nodded as if that was what she planned all along. On Tuesday, the water stopped running completely. Sophia did not waste time. She carried buckets and went outside to fetch water. She balanced the bucket carefully on her head and carried it into the house. Then she went back for another one and another one. Samuel stepped outside again and said, let me help you. Sophia shook her head. I have handled it. Samuel watched her carry the third bucket slowly. He noticed that her steps were no longer as strong as before, but she did not stop. She adjusted the buckets and continued moving because in her mind, asking for help would mean she had failed at something. By Wednesday, work pressure had increased. Sophia sat with her laptop responding to messages, attending calls, and solving problems without a pause. At some point, she closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again quickly because even rest felt like a delay she could not afford. That evening, Samuel told her, Sophia, you need to slow down. But she immediately replied, I am fine. On Thursday, a family issue came up. This was an issue that required attention, patience, and emotional energy. But Sophia handled it so well. She listened, advised, explained, and solved problems that were not even hers. She moved from one responsibility to another without stopping, like someone trying to prove a point to life. Then by Friday, her car started giving trouble. She stood by the roadside, speaking on the phone with a mechanic, trying to explain the problem, while also managing her time. To make matters worse, the sun was not friendly at all. The road was noisy and her patience was already thin. Someone called her and asked, "Where are you?" She replied, "I am handling it." He offered, "I am coming to meet you," but she declined. "No need, I have handled it." Samuel paused, then said, "Okay," and ended the call. By the time Sophia returned home, her body was tired deep inside her bones. But as usual, she did not rest. She entered the kitchen and started cooking immediately. Samuel pitied her. "Sophia, please now sit down first." But she shook her head and said, "I will rest later." On Saturday, Sophia handled all the house chores because she had refused Samuel from hiring a house help. She cleaned the house, washed the dishes, arranged things, and prepared food. She moved from one task to another without giving her body time to recover. At some point, she paused and held her waist briefly, then straightened up and continued walking as if nothing had happened. Samuel noticed it, but he said nothing. Then, by Sunday, everything from the week gathered together in her bones. Sophia woke up slower than usual. Her body was heavy, but she still stood up because in her mind, there was no alternative. She moved around the house, doing what needed to be done. But now, her movements were not as fast and her strength was low. Samuel thought she would stop because it was obvious she was weak, but Sophia did not stop. She continued because she still believed, "If I stop, everything will stop." She moved into the kitchen to begin her routine, seriously checking the gas, arranging the utensils, and planning her day inside her head while her body was still trying to catch up. She placed a pot on fire, picked up her phone to respond to a message, then turned back to stir the food, trying to manage two things at once as she had always done. However, this time, her coordination was not as smooth. She reached for a spoon and missed it slightly, then tried again and picked it up. She frowned, but she did not take it seriously. To her, it was just a small mistake. Her phone rang again and she answered it immediately, placing it between her ear and shoulder while she continued stirring the pot. "Yes, I have sent it," she said. "Check your mail." There was a pause, then she spoke again, slightly impatient. "I said check." Then her sentence stopped halfway, not because the call ended, but because something inside her suddenly caught. The spoon slipped from her hand and fell into the pot, but she did not react immediately. Instead, she stood still for a moment as if her body had forgotten what it was supposed to do next. She tried to pick up the spoon again, but her hand felt heavy and uncooperative, as if it no longer belonged to her. She held the edge of the table to steady herself. Samuel, who was in the sitting room, called out, "Sophia!" She replied, "I am fine," even though her voice was weaker than usual. She tried to take a step, but her legs did not respond properly. The kitchen suddenly felt slightly distant, as if everything had moved back without informing her. She blinked, trying to clear her vision, but the room did not adjust. Then suddenly, without any warning, her body gave up completely. Bam! She collapsed. Samuel froze for a split second because he was not expecting to hear that sound. "Sophia!" he shouted as he rushed into the kitchen. But there was no response. When he got to the kitchen, what he saw did not look real to him at first. He blinked as his mind struggled to catch up with what his eyes had just seen. How did this happen? One moment she was standing. The next moment she was on the floor completely still. He knelt beside her immediately, lifted her shoulders and called her name again, louder. "Sophia! Sophia!" Her body was limp in his hands and her eyes remained closed. Her breathing was shallow. Now, that frightened him even more. "Jesus!" he muttered under his breath as his hands began to shake. He looked around quickly as if help would appear from the walls. Then he grabbed his phone with trembling hands and called for help. His voice was no longer calm. "She collapsed. She just collapsed," he said urgently. But he did not wait. He carried her out himself. He struggled slightly because he was not prepared for the situation, but adrenaline pushed him forward. As he carried her, his mind was running, replaying everything from the past few days. Every moment he had noticed her slowing down. Every time she had said, "I am fine." And now, that sentence sounded different in his ears. They arrived at the nearby hospital where Sophia was received quickly because the situation was clear. Nurses moved forward and placed her on a bed. They checked her pulse and asked questions Samuel struggled to answer because his thoughts were scattered. "What happened?" one of them asked. "She just fell," Samuel replied, still trying to understand it himself. "She was fine. She said she was fine." They began attending to her immediately while Samuel stood there watching helplessly. The same woman who had been everywhere, doing everything, managing everything without rest, was now lying still, and there was nothing he could do about it. After some time, a doctor approached him and said, "You brought her in at the right time." Samuel nodded. "Okay, what is wrong with her?" The doctor looked at him suspiciously. "She is severely exhausted." Samuel frowned. "Exhausted?" The doctor nodded. "Yes. And from what I can see, this did not start today. It has been building over time. Too much stress, too little rest." Samuel nodded slowly because it made sense, but it also made him uncomfortable because this was serious. After some time, Sophia began to regain consciousness. She opened her eyes slowly and looked around, confused at first. The ceiling was unfamiliar and her body felt heavy. It was refusing to cooperate with her. She tried to sit up, but she could not. That was the moment the realization hit her. She could no longer push through. She turned her head slightly and saw Samuel sitting beside her, looking at her with relief and worry. He did not speak immediately. He only looked at her as if to confirm that she was really awake. Sophia opened her mouth to say something, but the usual sentence did not come out. She did not say, "I am fine," because now, even she knew she was not. She looked away and asked, "What happened?" Samuel let out a deep breath he did not realize he had been holding. "You collapsed in the kitchen," he said. "You just dropped." Sophia frowned. "Collapsed?" He nodded. "Yes, you did not respond. I had to carry you out. I rushed you here." Sophia tried to sit up again, but her body refused. She leaned back slowly with discomfort. "I was just cooking," she said. Samuel laughed ridiculously. "You were not just cooking. You have been doing everything since last week, as if you were competing with life." Sophia did not respond immediately. She looked at her hands, then at the ceiling again and said, "I didn't think it was that serious." "That is the problem," Samuel replied. "You never think it is serious." She turned her head to look at him. "So what? Should I just leave things like that?" Samuel shook his head. "Nobody said you should leave things, but you don't leave anything at all. That is the issue." Sophia turned quiet. The doctor walked in at that moment holding a file. He looked at her, then at Samuel and said, "You are awake." Sophia nodded. "How are you feeling?" the doctor asked. Sophia almost said, "I am fine," but she stopped herself. Then she corrected it. "I feel weak." The doctor nodded. "That is expected. Your body is tired. You pushed it too far." Sophia frowned, "But it was just 1 week." The doctor looked at her directly and said, "No, it was not just 1 week. This has been building for a long time. This week only exposed it. It is obvious you have not been resting properly. You should not be handling too many things alone. Your body cannot keep up with that pace forever." Sophia did not argue. She only listened and then asked, "So what should I do now?" "You will rest," the doctor said, "whether you like it or not. For now, your body has already decided." Samuel nodded. The doctor turned to him and said, "She will need help. Make sure she does not start behaving like her Kongan immediately she leaves here." Samuel smiled. "I know." The doctor looked at Sophia again and said, "Do you understand?" Sophia nodded reluctantly. "Yes." "Good," the doctor said, and then left the room. Sophia shifted slightly on the bed and asked, "How long have I been here?" Since this morning, Samuel replied. Sophia sighed. I have work. Samuel looked at her. You are in the hospital, oh. I know, but... No but, Samuel Cotton. You don't have work right now. You have rest. Sophia looked at him, ready to argue, but the energy was not there. She exhaled slowly and muttered, This is frustrating. Samuel nodded. I know. I don't like this, she said. I know, Samuel repeated. She turned to him. Then why are you looking like this? Like what? Samuel asked. Like you are not surprised, Sophia replied. Samuel leaned back slightly and said, I am surprised that it happened like this, but I am not surprised that it happened. Sophia stared at him in disbelief. Samuel continued, You have been pushing yourself for a long time. Last week just made it worse. Samuel continued. Made it worse. She looked away again and said, I thought I could handle it. Samuel nodded. You can handle many things, but not everything at the same time. Sophia shrugged. I just don't like depending on people. Samuel looked at her and said, Depending on people is not a problem. Refusing help is. Sophia did not reply immediately. She adjusted her position slightly, then winced in pain. Can you see? Samuel said. Samuel said, even sitting is now a problem. Sophia gave him a strong look. Don't start, please. I am not starting, Samuel defended. I am just saying what is there. Later that evening, a nurse came in with food, but Sophia looked at it and said, I am not hungry. The nurse smiled. You will eat small. Sophia shook her head. I really don't feel like it. Samuel looked at her and said, You will eat, oh. Sophia looked at him. You too? He nodded. Yes, you will eat. She sighed. Everybody is now controlling me. Samuel almost laughed. No, we are helping you. There is a difference. She looked at the food again, then picked the There is a difference. She looked at the food again, then picked the spoon slowly and muttered, This is not nice. Samuel smiled. You said you can do everything. Now eat anything. She gave him a strong look, but she still ate. The next day, she tried to stand up. She placed her feet on the floor carefully and pushed herself up, but her body felt weak, so she sat back down immediately and frowned. This is not normal. Samuel nodded. Exactly. She looked at him. I don't like this at all. I know, Samuel said again. She shook her head. I cannot even stand properly. Samuel shrugged. Then don't stand yet. She stared at him. Just like that? Samuel nodded. Yes, just like that. Sophia sighed. So, what will happen now? Samuel thought for a while and then answered, Now, you will rest. You will recover, and then when you come back, you will not carry everything like before. Sophia narrowed her eyes at him. And if I do? Samuel looked at her plainly and said, Then we will come back here again. She looked away stubbornly because she knew that answer was not dramatic. It was practical. Later that night, as she lay on the hospital bed, she replayed the past week in her mind. The rushing, the pressure, the movement, and the constant need to do everything herself. It all looked different now. Looked different now. All to what end? The next morning, when the nurse came in to assist her, Sophia did not resist. When Samuel tried to adjust her pillow, she did not say, I am fine. When he brought water for her, she took it without a word. Not because she had suddenly become weak, but because she had finally understood that if you carry everything alone, one day your body will drop everything for you. And when that day comes, you will not be able to argue with it. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching this story. This story is dedicated to two of our besties, Sophia Nelson and Samuel. Happy birthday, our double S. I wish you a year filled with love, wisdom, and favor. May this year bring the manifestation of God's promises in your lives. Dear besties, kindly share your thoughts about the story with us in the comment section. If you enjoyed the story, give the story a thumbs up and share it out with your loved ones. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!